part of it.
BBC Radio Leicester.
So I've been asking this morning, is our education system in crisis? Well, BBC Radio Leicester learned that the fears for music provision across our county and our city, and for the future of the Leicestershire School Symphony Orchestra, that's the LSSO. Now, in a joint statement, Leicester City Council and County Hall have admitted they're looking at making changes to the current Leicestershire arts system. Among the secretive proposals, teachers of instruments from trumpets to tubas and violins to violas could be forced to become self-employed, leading to concerns that the best instructors will abandon this area. Now let's join John Whitmore, former player with the London Schools Symphony Orchestra. Hello, John.
Hello, did you say the London Schools?
I did, didn't I? Leicester Schools, sorry.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Now, tell me a little bit about the Symphony Orchestra for anyone who doesn't know about the Leicester Symphony Orchestra. What is it?
Well, the Leicestershire School Symphony Orchestra is the top of a pyramid of musical excellence within the county of Leicestershire. It started off in 1948, and I guess it reached its first peak in the late 60s when Sir Michael Tippett used to conduct the orchestra, and at that time it was thought of as being at least as good as the National Youth Orchestra. That's how good it is. Now, all these years on, I was in it, as I say, in the late 60s.
What did you play?
I played the violin up to a certain level, but I've got to say that the standards within the kids after the 60s and 70s was much higher. So we can look back with rose-tinted specs to say, wasn't it great in the 60s? Well, it was, but having heard the orchestra a couple of years ago in De Montfort Hall, I think they are better than we were. They are absolutely top class. It's one of the country's, if not Europe's, great youth orchestras. That is what is at stake. But can I say, it's not just about the LSSO, it's about the provision of the music service. The LSSO is just the top of the iceberg.
I mean, if schools are abandoning music, if the funding means that schools across our county won't be able to have fantastic music teachers, won't be able to have fantastic music lessons, won't be able to put pupils forward for the Leicestershire School Symphony Orchestra, how bad is that? I mean, you know, there needs to be cuts, don't there? There needs to be things that are cut back.
Of course there need to be cuts. We're all in this together, aren't we? That's what we keep hearing. But it's not the kids' fault that we're in crisis, is it? And education is absolutely fundamental. Now, you know, I don't know whether this is open knowledge or not, or in the public domain, but drama and dance is gone as of April next year in Leicestershire. So that's the end of drama, that's the end of dance. Let's now look at music. What are these kids going to do? Now, look, the peripatetics teach between 5,000 and 6,000 kids every week across the county and the city. Every Saturday morning, 1,000 kids descend in coaches to Wixton for the area orchestras. Now, what are those 1,000 kids going to do then? Shall we just put them on the street, sitting around in groups drinking cheap beer? I mean, it's absolutely outrageous. We've got to give the kids something to do. I don't think some of the councillors and some of the people in the council in Leicestershire know what a fantastic organisation they've got. And I tell you what, if they carry out two of these proposals, which is self-employment for the peripatetic teachers and cancelling the Saturday rehearsals because of the cost of buses, within 2 to 3 years it will have withered away on the vine, it will be gone, and it will take 20 years to get back. We went through this in the early 80s, in the Thatcher era, and now it's coming back to haunt us. It's got to be sorted.
It's not about playing the recorder or playing the piano, or indeed in your case playing the violin, though, isn't it? You genuinely believe that there is a link between achieving good results in class and that being attributed to leisure activities such as music.
Well, it's not what I believe, it is what has actually been proven over the years. I mean, there's plenty of research out there to say that kids playing musical instruments gain enormously in other areas. It helps with their numeracy, with their literacy, it teaches them teamwork and discipline. Now, those four things are worth nurturing, aren't they? They really are. It's far deeper than just playing a violin a couple of nights a week and then going to Wixton on a Saturday. It helps you with your social skills and your other core curriculum subjects. And people need to realise this.
Can the Leicestershire School Symphony Orchestra survive, do you think, John?
I'll tell you what, it can survive because I've been doing a lot of networking over the last few days, and I can't give you any names. It would be unfair, obviously. But I feel that this is a little bit precipitate. There's something called the Henley Review currently going on, which is the top-level government review of the funding for music services up and down the country. Now, the government has two key strategies. The first thing is to make sure that the music provision is for all children, so it's access for all. Totally agree with that. Give everybody a chance. But the government are keen to promote excellence, and music services will have to provide pathways for gifted and talented. Now, pathways for gifted and talented include one-to-one tuition, and in our case in Leicestershire, the LSSO. So that is what the government are saying. Now, the Henley Review will look at each music service and come up with recommendations. Back end of December, maybe early January. Now, it may be good news, bad news, or more of the same.
Just briefly, John, just last question for you. Aren't we going to be in a situation where kids whose parents can afford to pay will end up having these kind of lessons that you and your colleagues provide, and those kids who can't afford, the ones from less well-off backgrounds, will just not have any link with this whatsoever? Isn't that the danger?
I don't think that is a danger, because I don't think anybody in the arts are saying that the fees are going up. The danger is that...
No, but if it's not being provided in schools, if there's nothing across schools, then these are going to have to be leisure activities outside of school, aren't they?
If it's leisure activities outside of school, there will be no music provision worth having in Leicestershire, and it will die a death. There is no reason for this draconian action, in my opinion. You know, other cuts need to be made. This is too important. There's got to be money elsewhere. You know, the government have announced, is it £8 billion to bail out the euro in Ireland? I know that that is a national situation and not Leicestershire. Money can be found. Now, the idea of cutting Saturday rehearsals is a nonsense. They're talking about doing this midweek. Now, look, parents are going to be in Loughborough, Hinckley, Ashby, Melton. They can't take their kids to Leicester on a Friday night in the middle of winter for rehearsal for the LSSO. It will be okay for a few weeks, but it's going to wear a bit thin, isn't it?
All right, John, thank you very much indeed for your time. John Whitmore there, very passionate. What do you think about what he has to say? He was a former player with the Leicestershire Schools Symphony Orchestra. Arts and sports, they're being eaten away in funding, as you heard there. And in a little later on in the programme, we're going to be speaking to someone from the Youth Sports Trust, whose responsibility it has been to get an interest among our school children in sport. That body is going to be axed. We're going to hear more from them. But let me ask you about this. How important is music? How important is sport? When you were at school, were you playing music? Were you involved in the sports team? I'd love to hear from you about this one. Maybe your children or your grandchildren are heavily involved in sport at school, heavily involved in music as well. And now you're worried about those things being cut. I suppose you could ask, does it really matter? As long as reading, writing and arithmetic are all spot on, as long as the government, as it's going to do, cracks down on proper grammar, cracks down on proper spelling, maybe that doesn't matter at all then if they're not taking up music lessons or sport. I'd love your thoughts, please, on this one. 0116 251 1049.